Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Very excited once again today to be doing a conversation with Kevin Washington, former head of experimentation at Best Buy. Make sure I get that title right. Kevin, was that what's your actual kind of role at Best Buy? What was the...
I was the director of product management over experimentation, and it's basically the head of experimentation, owned the data science function, the analytics function, and product management for Best Buy.
Nice. Awesome. And then just kind of setting the scene for this one. Kevin's been really awesome to kind of maybe walk us through some of the mindsets and thoughts about, hey, how does someone go about, like an organization like Best Buy, thinking about how to run experiments on the site and what are they actually trying to test and make decisions about? We're going to try to set this up a little bit actually as a bit of like a screen share discussion. So ideally, if you're watching this, if you can see it in your podcast player like Spotify, or we'll make sure there's like a YouTube feed, this would definitely be a visual one that would be awesome to check out. But with that, maybe Kevin, if you just want to like kind of tee this up a little bit, maybe you just like kind of share your screen and just kind of walk us through, okay, foundationally, how does like a company like Best Buy think about like optimizing its type of web property?
100%. I mean, when you think about Best Buy in general, you're thinking about how are we making money as Best Buy. I'm trying to push purchase conversion, and I'm trying to push ads. Those are kind of my two primary revenue streams. When you think about competing, especially right now, margins as thin as they are and everything else, especially for Best Buy, you'll see that they're pushing more marketplace type technologies, which is a different type of revenue. You don't have the on-hand inventory. You're kind of more competing directly with Amazon and then that retail media network. So if I had to say they were making two bets just from what's publicly available, I would say Lisa Valentino in the retail media network space there, and then on the marketplace side, and how do we compete and get more SKUs active and online.
If I was to simplify it, would it be fair to say you kind of got like three functions of like this like website running, where it's like actually Best Buy and it's like their online retail environment, and it's like, hey, I want to buy products from Best Buy, or get me the right store to buy like a product. But then, like you're saying, you've actually got a marketplace of other sellers, and then at the same time then you've got like the ability to run ads inside of Best Buy and actually like monetize some of like the ads, and all of those are probably a little bit in tension with each other in terms of like, hey, how do we design the best experience for all three of those at the same time?
100%, man. And then you got fun things like, sponsored product placements, which is very similar to ads, right? They kind of run through the same retail media network space, and then basis points on credit card transactions through the Best Buy card and signups for that and whatnot. So there's a good amount of different things you kind of have to compete from a metrics perspective.
Yeah, crazy. Okay, and then just so on the website itself, is there particular, like we call them areas, but I'll be curious to your verbiage of how you think about it too. Certain areas where like the retail one is trumping marketplace, for instance, or the ad network or something like that is like, how do you guys actually go about like thinking about that? And like, do you think about that in terms of like trying to create areas and zones and priorities? And I like the priority stack analogy, like in particular, like an important thing that we're trying to do here.
100%. I think it depends on who you ask. The idea, especially with Best Buy, is that there is this kind of good tension around retail media is trying to drive this, but let's make sure it doesn't hurt that. Okay, the merchant leaders are trying to push X, let's make sure it doesn't hurt Y. Because of the margin conversations, I think marketplace and retail media network are really winning a lot more of those conversations these days. But you're not going to see a lot of marketplace content on, like, let's, for instance, our homepage right now. I'm not there anymore. But the reason for that is that the marketplace is just starting up. So they're accepting vendors and doing all that kind of stuff. It's all very public at this point, but you're not going to quite see that yet. But the way that we thought about it as we started talking was, okay, cool. If we see an increase in folks that are driving, we're going to go drive traffic to our marketplace. What does that do to our existing relationships, existing vendor partners, and the dollars that we're making there? Things like inventory turns still matter, right? And at the end of the day, especially when you're thinking about Best Buy, like you got the 4 P's of retail, right? Price, place, promotion, product is the important one, right? As the e-commerce like engineering team, as the product team that owns the site, the only thing that you really own end to end is place. It's the placement of the product. It's, are you showing it to the customer at the right time? So that's a lot of what the optimization within this is for. And so that was another big conversation that we had a lot where, okay, cool, we're going to go optimize for purchase conversion, but you can't control everything. And so everything's very category specific, everything's very user specific. Randomization helps with a lot of that, but you really have to understand that just because there was a change and it looks, you know, causal, there's so many other factors that you have no control over whatsoever that you really have to make sure you understand. So debiasing was a big piece.
Totally. Yeah. No, it makes a ton of sense. And then so if we're on the homepage right now, so these are just like Best Buy retail products then, or what mainly is it like kind of showcasing, or kind of like what's the job of the homepage, at least in how you think about it?
So yeah, so I love that you said that. Job of the homepage, the
Yeah.
job of the different pages is something that I'm huge about. The idea here is to drive you deeper into Best Buy. What you're going to see as you're on the page are ads that are going to take you, even if they're ads, all of these are sponsored ads, they're going to take you to another Best Buy page internally. So we've got Oakley Meta glasses, which I did not know existed until right this second. Paid for that ad to be there. They're paying by clicks per million, but it's still Best Buy. And so when you purchase here, now I'm getting paid on that side of it as well because you're, you know, still within my ecosystem.
So that would be like an ad network placement on the homepage in that case, right? That would be Drive Best Buy BLP in this case, right? That's like sort of the where that click would go. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And so if you look directly, there's 5 different ad placements on the site currently. So you've got this banner across the top. You've got these. Apparently, this is not an ad. You've got these here as well. And at the end of the day, a lot of this homepage specifically is about personalization. We did a massive effort and we wrote some blog posts and whatnot about it. So I think we could talk about it without an issue around. Oh, actually, sorry, let me share it to this screen. My apologies. So you can see here we have 5 different ad placements across the site. Top here, these are here. And so then once you're even in here, like these are again more ads. And it gets really difficult to tell whether something is an ad or a actual just Best Buy link. It's really by design because if we come in here and we search laptops, a good example of a thing that was difficult to test. This ad right here. So we're recommending additional products, but you're already searching for products down here. So by adding this banner, I'm driving clicks away from something else. And so I want everybody to click on this because that makes the Retail Media Network dollars and Best Buy dollars. But now this team is going to start to see their clicks decline. Are we okay with that? How okay with that are we? And how do those metrics kind of drive into each other? It's a constant conversation. Um, and
If we just got a little granular on that one specifically, would be the primary metric on that type of like test.
Yeah. So if as we're adding it, it would be dollars that we made off of this ad placement
Okay.
versus reduction in like add to cart rate, for example. So the guardrail. So we set up a primary metric of number of clicks on this and how much money we actually made. That was the one thing that was always an interesting tension because the Retail Media Network team can show real dollars from a quick test.
Yeah, as soon as someone clicks, you get your direct revenue attribution, right? Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And a really fun thing actually that we did with A/B tests was we would run a test for like let's say a new client. Bose is obviously a client, but let's say that they're considering going to some new pages or something. We can go run a test and show you how much revenue you could make and then reference it with full A/B metrics and p-value and all that kind of stuff. So that was something I was really bullish on as I was moving out was how could we give like the vendors more control over their own testing and whatnot.
Yeah.
But if I were going to set this test up, I would set the primary metric up as revenue from clicks per million,
Yeah.
and then I would have that secondary metric of not harming add to cart rate by a certain amount, because there has to be a balance there, and trying to do some profit sensitivity analysis on, okay, well, if this goes down by this much, how okay are we? And then purchase conversion really being that guardrail metric, because even if you're clicking on this, if you're not converting, there's an assumption in that case that we're showing you something that you didn't actually need, and we're actually driving you away from the thing that you came here to do, which makes Best Buy a less desirable company in the long term, because we didn't give you what you needed. And so you might have clicked on this ad, sweet, but then you went to Amazon because you're like, this doesn't have it. I'll just go on ChatGPT and ask it what the best computer is and just follow whatever link I get.
And I ask, like, just, I think it's super fascinating too that, like, you're choosing these, I'm just going to call these like the retail products that Best Buy owns versus ad network dollars. Like how do you walk through that? Is it just a volume game? Is it too far down the funnel to make a relative comparison? What's a good way to like think about that?
That's really the way I think about it. I think that there are people that would argue with me, but at
Totally.
the end of
Which
the
everyone
day,
will, yeah.
there's just so many. There's so many teams at Best Buy, and there's
Yeah.
so many people that are influencing different things at different times. And so I'm making a change, exactly what you said there. I'm making a change on this page. What can happen on this page that is no longer going to happen after I make that change? I like to stay as close to the change as humanly possible to get a real apples to apples comparison. Because if we say, okay, well, I'm going to do that's why I keep purchase conversion as a guardrail metric. But you can do purchase conversion on the retail media network clicks for this ad versus this, like whatever shows up in the search recommendations. But you're then so far down both of those paths that's kind of, is it actually you're going to get the correlation, like how quickly, and get to more than a correlation and how quickly. So it's for me, it's the thing that's happening here is you're clicking on this ad, and then the thing that's happening here is you're clicking on this add to cart,
Yeah.
and
Just makes
Bob's your uncle.
it's what the actual action is directly in the relative test comparison, and then like you take secondary effects and then kind of look at like how that kind of plays out further down the line.
100%.
Super fascinating.
One of my favorite examples is when I first got here, they had run a test where they had people landing on kind of this search page. It was kind of an SEO optimization test or what have you.
Yeah.
So people were coming here and they had made some changes to the way this was laid out. I think they went with this versus kind of the bar list graph. So what they did was they only looked at purchase conversion, because that's kind of how Best Buy operates. There was I want to say like a 40 basis point increase in add to cart rate. And there was a major uptick in number of customers that were hitting the page. So not only did you boost traffic, you also boost engagement, like wholesale.
Yeah.
But add to cart rate went down, and add to cart rate went down because there were so many more customers that the rate went down, but the absolute didn't. But there was an issue in that there was a thing that was confusing about the checkout page. I don't remember exactly what it was in both experiences, but you had so many new customers that never shop on Best Buy that were in the test group. And I hope I'm making sense as I'm
Yeah,
just
I'm
word
following
vomiting
it.
this.
Yep.
That once they came to the checkout, they were even clicking checkout and getting confused and then leaving, and that was where the bounce was happening. Because even right here, it's like, okay, well, now you added this extra step. I know that you're a new customer, or I should, generally a lot of the time. So like, do we need to have this, and like, how can we give an expedited checkout if you come through this funnel? But they called the test a failure, and this was I just happened to be going through all the details of the different tests that had happened over the last year when I first got hired, and I said, well, what happened with this? There was no connection to any of those good metrics that they boosted, because the success or failure was based solely on whether Optimizely told them that they won or they lost based on purchase conversion. And yes, at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to drive towards. But if I just hacked so many additional people into the funnel and I'm getting them to the next step, and even the next step in a lot of those cases, and then they're falling off. There might just be that's a new cohort that I haven't seen here before,
Totally.
and now I need to do something to try and attract them. Like it's an Eric Ries thing from the good old days of everybody had to read his book, right? The
Lean
Lean
startup
Startup.
still.
Exactly. Metrics are people too. I mean, I remember reading that as a wee product lad, but it's really taking and understanding the customer journey. It's not just about the raw data and what you think you know. It's still garbage in, garbage out when it comes to test setup and everything else.
And just to clarify too, for people listening, what in this case was driving like a new cohort? Like, was it the ad itself was just getting a whole new group of people actually like into that PLP or PDP in this case?
Yeah, we had done a, a A/B test on a type of marketing campaign that was like SEM driven,
Yeah,
and so it was boosting people to this page specifically.
yeah,
Because otherwise we didn't typically drop people in search.
yeah.
Usually we drop them in other places, and so it was like a specific view of search that had really high add to carts and whatnot. But yeah, that was probably one of the most interesting insights, and that's one of the reasons that I said, okay, we're just not going to use purchase conversion. Like I hear you, yes, that's a thing. We'll keep it as a guardrail metric, but what we really need to start to do is look, how are the things that we're doing generally affecting? And here's one more piece that's important to understand why I didn't do purchase conversion. The changes that we were making were so small that just the likelihood that you were actually going to make a meaningful enough change to see a result was so low outside of the page that to say that you're going to be able to go multiple steps down the funnel and still have an impact was just unrealistic. And so instead looking at something more like a Bayesian regression or something over time where okay, cool, I've got these informed priors, I know these people were in this cohort at this time, and I can really understand how the changes that did go into production then started to drive additional value one way or the other. Having that regression that looks across everything and says, okay, here's the group of tests, here's the time that they went in, and let's look at the dollars that we made of just trying to extrapolate off of an A/B test to, because that's another thing that was happening was that, hey, the A/B test we increased purchase conversion by 20 basis points. So in revenue, if we extrapolate that over the year, it's going to be $40 million. It's like, okay, cool. We get to the end of the year and everybody's looking around like, so what happened to all that money? Because if the ecom team made all the money they said they were going to, it'd be an $88 billion company instead of $44 billion. So it's fun.
Oh, well, I was going to ask you, diving into this actually. So you've got kind of different revenue drivers, which is kind of fascinating, right? You got like the media network is going to drive revenue now, in addition to like let's just even put marketplace aside for a second. So you've got different. I think you kind of were mentioning it. How do you think about like short term versus like long term implications when you're doing this as well, right? So like it's like we can drive short term like revenue, like is there anything to like consider there? And I wonder if there's like, I think that's where it gets into a little bit more of the art rather than just the pure science. Like it's how do you think through that?
I think that's exactly right. Cart size is a big thing, right? Um, Returns is a big thing too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There's some we don't call them dark, but there's some UI patterns or some approaches to things that you could do to get people to buy things now and then regret the decision later. Um, Being really at that right place at the right time, at the right price, at the right promotion, right? To provide the value that somebody's looking for in the moment, I think is really what we're driving, ideally. But how do you mechanically kind of determine that revenue and whether or not you're giving that to a customer? We did a lot of things like trying to determine who our best customers are based on a set of actions. So how engaged you are with Best Buy over time. And there were like kind of these behavioral values that we'd assign to different actions. And then it was a question of, do those people take those actions because they're our best customer, or are they our best customer because they took those actions? So that was kind of a fun exercise to do a series of A/B tests to determine if we pushed people that were not our best customers to go take those actions, would they then become them? Is this one of our like ideal experiences as far as like this is defining for Best Buy solving your job to be done, or is it not?
Would you define that? Like, what would be like how would you measure like they are now? They've gone from, let's call it not an ideal customer, but have now become like our best customer. Like, how would you actually measure and then put them in that segment or cohort?
Yeah, it took time. Like there was a weekly, daily, weekly, monthly kind of stickiness of like coming back.
Yeah, yeah.
Downloading the app was a huge thing,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
If you
Okay.
had an experience that was X, Y, or Z, and then downloaded the app, and then kept the app downloaded for 30 days, and kept it open, turned on your notifications, engaged with different things, were more willing to open an email. Like there was a specific percentage at which someone would open an email from Best Buy if they were a more engaged customer. So there were some different things that we could do to kind of see over time, but it was probably a 3 month endeavor of creating these different cohorts and trying these different things to push people into different actions to see which ones were actually driving revenue at the end of the day, right? Like
Yeah.
LTV is what we're trying to drive. How do I get somebody to, if there's an assumption of X share of wallet, how am I capturing that share of wallet? And it could just be that they're buying their small stuff here. Hey, I need a new phone case. I need new cables. I need new whatever, right? And then do those lead to a large purchase because we've built the trust? Because at the end of the day, like what do we have versus Amazon? It's that Best Buy is supposed to be where you go because there's expertise, and we're only going to sell you the top of the line, like best product. And so it's like similar. That's not something that I did at Home Depot, where it was a question of how do I recreate the store experience that we're known for online. Home Depot, it's really project selling. You have your project starter item, but there's a reason that the dirt is in the back of the store, so that you have to walk past the flowers and the hose and the shovels before you get to the thing that you came for. And so by then you've already stacked up on everything else that you needed in addition to the dirt. Because project starters versus attached item, basket versus all that.
Is there an analogy that you can just, what does that look like digital? So you kind of talked about the back of the store. Is that possible in a digital experience?
A lot of it's like recommending an additional product that you might need. That's what you do
Yeah.
a lot of the
Yeah.
time. And that's where a lot of people kind of start and stop. We attempted to resolve some of that with AI, where we had the AI experience where you could sit there and chat, and that really I think identified some additional interesting patterns where somebody would look for an item, cool, they'd find it. Hey, what else goes? What else would somebody that's buying this like? Right? So there's a lot of gift finding. So over Christmas last year, we did a gift finder AI experience where you could give some information about whoever you're shopping for, and then they provide gift recommendations and things that went along with it and things like that. And we found like the discoverability is really the place where that project selling or the solving whatever your need is, but giving you all of the things you could possibly go along with it. Another interesting thing along with that was the ads that you show and the value of the ads at that point, where it's like if somebody's buying speaker systems or the kind of vinyl record player or something like that, then they might want like ear protection because they're probably somebody that goes to concerts more often. So there were some interesting things like that within the data. I know we're getting a little bit out of experimentation, but like there was a lot of really fun
I
stuff
think
that we
I
found.
think I think these are super linked. I think they're like, yeah, I think the idea of segments and how to behave, and at the end of the day, like it's like groups of people and how do we like design the best possible experience for that, but in the context they're in. It's like very related.
Sure.
I have spent like it's kind of interesting you talk about the value proposition of Best Buy, right? And I have used it before where I actually think like I have a lot of trust in it. It has really good delivery. I think their return policy, I had so much like confidence if it's not the right product, like it's easy. I can take it back to like a store close by to me is also feels great. Although I think with the sort of the the network, or maybe I'm not saying it right. It's not, no, the marketplace. That I don't know if that actually holds true anymore. And almost like it makes me a little bit more wary of like, oh, can I take this back? Like, what's a marketplace good versus like a Best Buy good?
Yeah.
Um, these different things, which can be a marketplace. You have like the media network, so I've got ad placements. I feel like there's a lot of really good stuff of like why buy from Best Buy sprinkled through the site that I've always not like went and like thought about. Okay, like this is a really strong like experience building confidence. Were you able to maintain all of that? Were there trade offs where there was less prominence of that? Like maybe I'm just curious, does Best Buy like think is that even important, or was it just almost like that was table stakes? It was just always part of it there.
It was an interesting conversation. There were not really great metrics around it.
Yeah.
It's the idea of brand equity is kind of what we got down to. It's we're telling our brand story and what's the value of that in the marketplace. But it was always secondary. It's like if we had nothing else to put in that placement, then okay, let's do some brand story stuff here. Or there were specific places for it. There used to got to be this discover tab in general where you could go and you could learn about the different brands and why Best Buy picked certain brands and different things like that. That was cool, but
I've never seen that, so it's like an interesting thing. But I've always been really skeptical of like I think the AI experiences just at least not yet have delivered. I think as much as like your intuitive, what we're all used to in terms of in and out like shopping behaviors. But sorry, I don't want to derail us though. Like just thinking about that, like in general though, yeah,
yeah, I mean, and that's really a lot of what it came down to was if we could make money with the placement, make money with the placement. If we
interesting.
can't make money with the placement, let's tell our brand story and let's try and build additional equity.
It's almost that would be the priority though. It would shift to like, hey, there's like this placement's got more value than we're creating, and we're actually gonna go seek to capture it.
And I mean, especially right now, the way that retail is, it's you're not seeing as much brand loyalty, especially from like younger generation and whatnot, and they're buying a lot cheaper. And so the reason for marketplace, if you think about it, phone cases is a great example. Best Buy has tons of phone cases, but there's probably a million SKUs that they don't have access to that people are going and buying and they don't have time to keep up, and then they end up with all this extra on-hand inventory because they're not selling through whatever color because it's not what's hot right now. So the idea behind the marketplace was we just want more of categories that we're we don't need to really put our name behind to trust. Like we're not going to go marketplace a bunch of laptops. Was the plan? Don't know if that is the plan, but it's more the long tail SKUs, which is a similar approach to what Nordstrom took when they did their market. I was there for that as well,
Yeah.
but their whole thing again was we're going to curate the hell out of who our marketplace partners are as if they were an actual vendor for Nordstrom, because again, it's another company where it's our brand image. I realize I worked at a lot of companies where their brand image was kind of the main selling point. But yeah, it
Well,
was.
I was going to ask you that. So you've got then marketplace and curation and like maintaining the trust. Is that the same then on Best Buy? And is that like just very like there's a subjective person that's like really trying to vet these marketplace sellers, or like how do they think through that, and like how do they think of marketplace and like maintaining trust?
My understanding, and again, this might be getting a little too behind the scenes, but my understanding is that they were looking to be a more open from a like number of sellers that within a category, let's say, but which categories they pick is the part that I think is a little bit more specific, right? Like they might not want to create a competitor in something like laptops that we're gonna open this up to any random whatever and get a bunch of like potentially lower quality things because that's what we're known for. We don't want to see a bunch of returns, whatever. But again, with the idea of like phone cases, like don't really care. It'll be fine. It's more about the fashion than the function,
Yeah.
and maybe that's kind of the delineation. But yeah, it's a little sausage making stuff that I wasn't fully involved in. I more just kind of helped with the hey, how do we think about as we add to marketplace, how are we not hurting our existing business? The idea with marketplace too, though, is from an SEO perspective, if you have more SKUs, you have more chances to show up on Google. And so that means more eyes. More eyes means more advertising views per million, clicks per million, which means more ad revenue dollars. So that's how those things kind of start to tie together. But it's a question of, as we're getting those news in, what does it do to return rate? What does it do to LTV, weekly active, app utilization, downloads, things like that? Because again, you can make a ton of money by, one of the best examples was on the PDP page. We added a ad that was really, really confusing, like right above reviews. So there used to be an ad right here. And the problem with that ad was that it was massive. So it was, imagine this ad that's right here, only it was right above reviews, and it said, get deals on Best Buy products today. And so it looked with all the Best Buy branding and whatnot, and you click on it, and it takes you to some random Capital One, like sign up for coupons experience. And I just happened to notice that it was there, and I had to go ask somebody, like, hey, this is super confusing. And when I click on this, it seems like a terrible experience. Like, who okayed this? Like, did we test the impact of this? Because I don't remember seeing it. And they were like, oh, no, we didn't test that, but we're running a test very similar to that on the PLP, which is the when you go and search the product list page. Let's see how that one's doing. And we lost a ton of money on that, right? Made the ad revenue, but clicks were way down, and bounce rate, because you were clicking that and it was a non-endemic ad that's pushing you off of the platform. That's not what you want on your PLP and your PDP. And so what they ended up,
Is that in that case though that like you are just creating the placement, like the real estate that then can be filled by any ad, or is that ad an exclusive ad that's
yes,
already, so it's just the placement
it's just the
exists?
placement.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And so it was the potential for the risk of that ad being non-endemic because they didn't sell it correctly.
When you say non-endemic, is that referring to an endemic means like it's or non-endemic means like it's staying inside of the Best Buy domain platform versus otherwise it's actually being redirected to a totally different brand's
Yes,
page. Yeah, right? Okay.
exactly. That is exactly it. Non-endemic would be it's like not sold by us,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
pushing them outside of the Best Buy experience. And so because it was a massive placement and it was right here, it didn't look like an ad to people, and that was just a risk that had to be run. So we actually, it was during holiday and everything, so we actually had to run an emergency A/B test where we left that as control, did a 50-50, where we removed it to
Yeah.
see what it would do to purchase conversion, because there was this assumption that it had driven down revenue by like, ridiculous amount of money. Turns out, no. In the short term, it wasn't really driving a lot of that money down. But they still went ahead and made it a much smaller ad because for the little bit that it was causing chaos, making it endemic and smaller got rid of all of the signals of losing purchase conversion and bounce rate and all that.
This is like probably quite a big question that probably has a difficult answer, but just curious when you kind of have those dynamic parts of websites, maybe Best Buy in general, but just more broadly, because I think of this one, especially when I'm reading things like a news article or whatnot, that there's clearly just like real estate there that any ad can fill it. Obviously, then these like different ad networks have signal on me and they can drop hopefully like a relevant ad in that space. But oftentimes I find like it's like so distracting or like overwhelming that like that has like while I'm there, it's okay. But I feel like the long term effect of that is like, oh, like I'm slowly like just like, hey, like I don't enjoy being here. I don't enjoy reading this content. Is there anything that you can think of like any way to control for that dynamic nature of it? Does it affect like it's like if a really crazy ad was running during like a test period, that's also like a super uncontrolled factor maybe, or maybe it just doesn't matter because it's all just gonna wash out anyways. Like, do you have any like thoughts about that in terms of like, is there a best practice for that? Is that just a concern? Is that not relevant?
It's one of those hard things because what I would say is best practice is you should have controls on a lot of those things,
Yeah.
and especially like this particular example is one where we were able to kind of advocate as well. We shouldn't have been advocating as the experimentation team because it's got nothing to do with us, right? Generally, right? We run the experiments. What you do after the fact, that's on you. I shouldn't be telling the retail media team how to run their business. But I did have to say, like, there is a marked difference between showing an endemic ad and a non-endemic ad here. If you don't, I know that the best practice is if you didn't sell the ad, just let Google Ad Marketplace put an ad there. Maybe that's not the best practice that we should run on our extremely high value pages, right?
Yeah.
PDP, that's rough. Hey, homepage, sure, maybe, right? Some of these smaller, whatever. Hey, maybe just the fact that like the placements at the very bottom of the screen, like, don't really care what you put there. It's all good. We got a bunch of affiliate stuff here that looks super sketchy. Sure, put the ad under that, make it as endemic, non-endemic, whatever. But when it's right, two components down from the price block, and I'm just trying to get the information I need to go and convert, you're now putting an interruption in the middle of my buying experience that it just doesn't make sense from a user experience perspective. So, and this is back to the, metrics are people too. We can run as many tests as you want. That doesn't pass the smell test on something that just makes sense, right? Show me as much data as you want. As a consumer, that should feel bad. And we can go do other types of testing to determine whether or not that feels bad by actually talking to customers and seeing how they feel about it. And realistically, it's hard to prove LTV. At the end of the day, it takes a long time. And by the time you've kind of proven out the LTV or the share of wallet or anything else, you're 3 to 6 months down the line going, damn, we shouldn't have done that last quarter. So which is why we did a lot of that testing to try to figure out what are those drivers of that LTV over time, and like what makes the best customer. Our best customer is somebody that has a, let's say, I think it's annual. Actually, let me not get into the actual numbers, but there was like an annual spend number, for example, right? And so if that's what I'm shooting for consumers in this cohort, and it was all cohort by cohort based, then my assumption of their share of wallet is X on average. And so can I see some of these behaviors start to drive towards that share of wallet or not? And like what categories are they spending in, that type of thing.
Yeah, fascinating. Well, I just want to say, I think this is like, loved it. Love the conversation, especially. I love this idea of like, hey, like kind of the jobs of websites are evolving. The way that we can monetize them is evolving. I think like you just kind of sharing this, especially for something like Best Buy, of like how they think through. They've got these different tensions, right, between media networks and marketplace, and then just like the baseline, what the site always did. I think is super, super fascinating. Thank you so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate it. Loved it. That was awesome. That was great to talk to you. So I really appreciate it.
Always good to talk to you too, man.
Yeah.
No, 100%. I really appreciate the time.
Cheers, man. Thank you so much.
Peace.